She had been invited to speak at St. Margaret's Ladies' College on Bloor Street. The audience was largely made up of members of the Toronto Women's Canadian Club. Her expertise in the fields of domestic science and industrial education were widely accepted, as was her talent as a public speaker. Indeed, between 1894 and 1895, she had given over 60 addresses on her subject of interest. But this time, about 10 minutes into her talk, her voice failed. She put her hand to her head as if in pain. As a whisper of concern rippled through the audience, she was handed a glass of water. She smiled thanks, took a sip, spoke a few words, and then collapsed to the floor. The woman who had a part in establishing the YWCA as a nationwide organization, who was a member of the founding executive of the Victorian Order of Nurses, who was involved in the founding of the National Council of Women, who was the inspiration behind the Women's Institute movement, who had represented Canada at international councils, who had persuaded the province of Ontario to introduce home economics in schools, and who had secured funding for the training of teachers of domestic science, had died. It was the eve of her 53rd birthday. Amazingly, Adelaide Hoodless had started her public life only 20 years earlier. Haunted by the death of her small son, she began work that would evolve into a multifaceted campaign to give women the knowledge and institutions they needed to safeguard their families. Yet, even though all of the institutions that she had a part in founding are still at work today, Adelaide has been called, paradoxically, one of the most famous Canadian women, yet one of the most obscure. So how has this remarkable woman been remembered in the 100 years since her death? Do the ways that she has been commemorated indicate fame or obscurity? Well, actually, both. In 1911, the year after she died, one of Hamilton's new schools was named after her. The school, in turn, was commemorated on this teacup. Dr. Henry Hurd Marshall developed a rose in 1975 that he named after Adelaide. The rose is deep pink with a mild fragrance and is able to withstand very cold winters. Her portrait was one of the images in a series of 4 stamps issued by Canada Post in 1993. The stamp was designed by Heather Cooper and shows a head and shoulders portrait of Adelaide. In total, there have only been 41 famous Canadian women honored with postage stamps. On October 27, 1937, some 300 people watched Lady Tweedsmuir unveil a cairn dedicated to Adelaide's memory. The cairn can still be found at the intersection of Blue Lake Road and Highway 24 near St. George. To this day, it is cared for by the Brant District Women's Institute. Yet, I believe that the most profound commemoration of Adelaide Hoodless is also the most recent. In 2003, the Hoodless Garden was created as a part of numerous celebrations to mark the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Macdonald Institute. Nestled inside 3 walls of the Institute, the garden is an ordered sanctuary. As one looks out over the Hoodless Garden from the windows of the Macdonald Institute, one is struck by a silver outline of Adelaide's face, which shines through the trees in winter. Cut out of 1/4-inch aluminum with a jigsaw, the sculpture by artist Jan Nostedin towers over the close observer. Jan stated, "I designed the aluminum portrait of Adelaide Hoodless in 2000 as an homage to a great woman, larger than life." Jan mounted it 6 inches away from the wall, allowing light to shine through the image, casting a shadow onto the wall that moves with the sun. This sculpture is not only beautiful, it is a metaphorical statement on Adelaide's historical accomplishments and her enduring impact. One item, or rather collection of items, remains unmentioned. Its existence is a clear expression of the respect and devotion that still exists for Adelaide, held by people who have never met her in person, yet regularly contribute to her legacy. Adelaide's childhood home was acquired by the Federated Women's Institutes of Canada in 1959. The home was owned by the Hunter family for 55 years, and it has been owned by the FWIC for 51 years. A generation for family, a generation for history. 100 years after the death of Adelaide Hunter Hoodless, her commemoration does not exist in quantity, but it does exist in quality. Women around the world know her name, and through the organizations she founded, those who work in the home are sustained and respected, people are cared for, and women have increased mutual support.